the Koran was actually the book of the European people. Yes, alongside with other books. But these other books that they were putting out there and giving out there, nobody really followed any of these until after the 19th century, the widespread printing of this current Bible that we're given.
Welcome back, David, once again. We're very happy that you choose to continue the exploration with us, and maybe we can find some more irregularities and strange occurrences in history.
Okay, yes, there is always something wrong with history. Now, Professor Anatoly Fomenko is like the king in this topic. Well, one of the kings, and he's written many books. In his chronology showing something is totally wrong with world history, and I've written in my books, and many people are questioning and saying, where did he get this from? Where did he get that? Well, you know what? People can read these books that Professor Fomenko has shown, and he even shows his references. He's done very deep research. In fact, he's went to visit many of the sites himself in many places around the world, like I have. Maybe he hasn't been to as many places as me. It's I had more time and a bit maybe more finance, but I did it. But I do know that he's been, and you can see photographs within many of his books that he's been to actually investigate sites, museums, and things himself. Many people are not aware of this. Now, one of the biggest things, because many people are saying, where did David get this from? Me, from my own research, from my own conclusions, yes, I came to conclusions which are basically identical to what Professor Fomenko is saying. Now, what my research is, I've not copied his. I did take his advice, but you know what? Yes, we both came to the same conclusion. It seemed like, imagine if you're going to go to New York, you're going to find there's a place there called Times Square. Yes? Now, I could go to the same place and I will find, hey, there's a place there called Times Square. Yes, in Manhattan. So we both came to the same conclusion that Times Square in Manhattan is in New York. Whereas I've been to other places so where you haven't been, and I'll say, I could be very funny, like some people are, yes, and they don't realize it. It's because of their limited knowledge, and say, there's a Times Square in Penang, in the Penang Peninsula, in Penang City, in Malaysia. Do you know this?
I don't
Hello?
know. I don't know this, no.
Okay. Do you know what? And then there's many people saying, he keeps saying, yes, yeah, yeah. It's because I don't know if you can hear me. It's because Facebook, how often do our conversations cut off? How often?
I don't know. Sometimes.
It's like every time we do recording, I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. So I say yes, yes. It means just to make sure because we're recording and I don't want to like repeat myself. And we've even many times the connection goes off. And have I said to you, I forgot what I was going to say? Yes.
Sure, can happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, many times, like the last time we did a recording about, these biblical documents related to it, which we decided to call "Sleeping with God." Yes, yeah, because these topics take too long. We can't fit them in one video. Is that correct? Yes.
Oh, definitely. I mean, most of these topics are very
Yes.
expansive.
So this is why people will have to go and do some research themselves, and there's certain things that I'm showing from. I normally provide the evidence where I get things from. People will have to do some research themselves instead of just saying, "Hey, he said this. What does that mean?" And don't jump to conclusions because history is something that many people find is important because we want to know why we're alive, what we're doing here, and things like this. But anyway, the biggest conclusion that Fomenko came to which impacted the world is the same thing that I've come to. Now you can read it yourself, so that these are in his chronology books, and you can read it yourself. I've um, highlighted it. What does Fomenko say?
All right. So as we now understand, well, I want to read the previous sentence too. I think it makes more sense
Go
then.
ahead.
So, Bud, as a Christian of the 17th century, already brought up quite skeptical of Islam, he believes that the Koran and Islam in general, while supposedly at odds with Christians, nevertheless borrowed some important ideas from quote unquote earlier Christianity and Judaism. As we now understand, this is not entirely true. Islam, Judaism, and modern Christianity emerged from the previously united royal and then apostolic Christianity of the 12th to 16th centuries.
Okay, so now if anybody has not read his books, well,
So
hello.
yes, so much for the connection breaking. So the last thing you said was if anyone hasn't read his books, you were talking about the last page. Hmm.
Okay. Leave this in the recording. This is a perfect example. The call just cut off. We don't even know why. So that's why I say yes, yes. Have you heard me? Yes. So that's that. But anyway, back to that again. Yes. What Fomenko has clearly shown in his books is that there was a royal kingdom. Yes, what we call the royals throughout Europe. Yes, Euro, Asia, and the Middle East. And that was what we would call in the Old Testament, in the Bible, or in the Quran, the so called kings or the caliphs. Yes, the kings are the caliphs, and
Or the
they've
Khans.
yes, the Khans. Yes, if it's in Eastern Europe, like the Bulgarian Khans and things like this, or King David, King Solomon, things like this. And then it was the apostolic, means the prophets. Yes, like in the Bible, we have the Book of Kings and the book and the prophets of God. Yes, and what do you call it? He calls it royal Christianity. Yes, but it wasn't Christianity. It was one religion. Yes, before the 17th century. Yes, so the thing is, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity was actually one religion. And in my books, I've called this original Islam, original Christianity, and original Judaism, which was actually just one religion and one system. And they had royal kings, same like how we see Charlemagne getting crowned by the so-called, they say the popes, but it wasn't the popes. It's actually the prophets of God, or whoever who was there amongst the priesthood. And then something happened after the 17th century. Now, now the thing is, he writes there 17th century, but as we know, Flamenco doesn't go much into the 18th or 19th century. He doesn't talk about the history of Napoleon Bonaparte. And have you read my book, Napoleon Bonaparte? I've forgotten. I've asked you that
Yes,
before, of course.
yes, I have.
Yeah. Now, if you've read it, then you will find there's something wrong with the entire 19th
Yes,
century.
there is.
So that would leave us that something happened in the 17th century. It actually means something happened at the 18th century or the end of the 18th century. Around that time, we have this man who's mysteriously called Napoleon Bonaparte who turns up. That's what they've told us in history. Yes, and what this man does is that what do you call it? He invades Eastern Europe. Yes, and then goes into Moscow. Yes, but he mysteriously does not attack St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg was the capital of Russia. But Napoleon goes to attack Moscow, which doesn't make sense at all. Yes, so that's what we can see. So now the thing is, what we know is that many people know, like the United States, we went through the history of their, what do you call it? So Eastern Europe, something's wrong. We know that the communists trashed the place in the 20th century. It was like a hellhole. there was an iron curtain to hide what was going on and things like this in the 1930s, 40s. Stalin, Lenin. It was so horrible. Yes, but it all started around the time when the so-called French went to Russia. Yes, something happened. Now, what many people know and what many people will say is that what do you call it? Yes, the Eastern Europeans went to Americas. Yes, that's well known, and that's why we'll say there's a lot of Jewish people in New York
Yeah,
who came from Eastern Europe. Yes, but now what many people don't take into real consideration, it's because they ignore, yes, Muslim history. It's almost like the Muslims don't exist. Nobody wants to know what the Muslims have got to say. Yes. So now the thing is, let's be rational here and let's think normal here. So now, during the entire 19th century and the early 20th century, we can see people from Eastern Europe. Naturally, they went to Canada, United States, Latin America, Australia, Germany, France, England. But where is it more easier to go to from that location, especially if the French armies are coming from the west? So where would you naturally go? To go north is cold. To
right.
go east, it's still cold in Russia. It's like Siberia. So where are they going to
Southeast.
go? South and east.
Yeah, southeast,
And
yeah.
what empire was in the south in the Balkans at the time? In Romania. In what do you call it? They turn around and say the Crimean Tatars,
Maybe
and then the Caucasus.
was it
What
already
is
the
the
Ottoman
empire?
Empire officially? Yeah.
Yes, it was Muslim territory. So now the thing is, nobody, hardly anybody, talks about these people, but Fomenko talks about it. So now the thing is, let's go back to Fomenko's assessment again. Yes, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity was one religion. Yes, and then what do you call it? It split up. After the 17th century. 16th century is the last time that we can show that they were all together. Not only does Fomenko say this, but the Quran says something strange. Now, if the Quran did turn up around the 16th, 17th century, like Fomenko has found, and what I seem to have found, then this is what the Quran actually says the same thing. What does the Quran say?
So here in official ordering, chapter 2, Surat Baqarah, the cow, Sahih International, mankind was of one religion before their deviation. Then, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's already, I guess, important
Yes,
enough
simple.
to simple
It's
enough, yeah.
simple, but then they started, what do you call it? Yes, there was people who started pretending that they've got differences, because religion makes money. Yes, and other things. It's like, and the thing is, many people wanted power. And what I've shown in my book, The Matrix Codes, which is very important, was that the so-called Catholic Christianity, which is now modern Christianity, which many people think is original Christianity, it's not. Yes, where they have the Trinity, the Father, the Mother, and the Holy Spirit. Yes,
Hmm.
they used to have a different Trinity, before the 16th century, whereby Mary was part of the Trinity. Now, many of these Western scholars, yes, like even these so-called fake historians in Russia who were working for the people in power when they took over after the so-called French invasion, yes, which was supported by the Vatican and their allies. Yes, it wasn't just French, it's something else, that the entire history of Napoleon is just bogus and it's a lie. Yes, that we find there's a different Christianity. Even the Quran itself mentions that Mary was actually part of a trinity. And what do you call it? Yes, they try to say that the Quran is mistaken, but we can find this in Catholic documents or church documents before the Protestant movement, yeah, and things like this, from during the Renaissance times, that they actually worship the Virgin Mary, just like the Quran says. The thing is, as we can see, Fomenko, I don't think Fomenko was preaching Islam, which many people are accusing me of. I'm talking about European history here. So we can see that there's something wrong with European history. So now when we have a look at all these people, yes, many people don't seem to realize that all these people are emigrating from Eastern Europe and they're leaving. Yes, because there's in Western Europe, what we found is that when the Vatican's armies took over, yes, what they did was they were massacring people, skulls, bones, things like this, and they threw them in buildings that they took over in Stafford cities, which looked like that there's some type of power generation centers, yes, that provided some type of heating system, yes, which we still use today, water inside radiators, hot water, yes, and the Quran mentions that too. So of course I'm going to mention that I found this in the Quran, yes, which explains the purpose of these buildings. So now in Eastern Europe something happened. Yes, something happened in Eastern Europe whereby the old world order collapsed. Yes, and then let's think again. This is not a joke. Now, if anybody watches the Russo-Ottoman Wars, yes, what we see is the Ottoman are losing territory. They're withdrawing from Ukraine. They're withdrawing from South Russia. They're withdrawing from Romania, from Hungary, and they just entirely left Europe. They just entirely left Europe to now, what do you call it? Yes, Istanbul, which is in Turkey. And what we do know is that because there's many people who want to invent things, yes, what do you call it? Yes, the Ottoman used a language called Ottoman Arabic. All their documents and everything was there. Yeah, so they used it for several centuries. Hello?
Yes, the last thing you said was 7 centuries, and then you sent a new page.
What was the last thing? Leave this in the recording so people
Yes,
will know
the la
why I keep saying yes, yes, it keeps cutting out. What was
the,
the last thing?
the last thing you said was 7 centuries, and then you sent a new page.
What
Something
was
about
it?
7 centuries is
Um,
the last word I heard, but this was still referring to the other page and the migration
uh,
patterns.
Let me think. Ah, did I not mention Persian or Arabic? No?
Well, you cut off right 30 seconds or something. You were talking about where the people were fleeing to.
The people are fleeing south. So now, when we look at the map, go back to the map. Yes, see all these problems that we have recording. People just listen to the final product and they think it was an easy job. It wasn't. Our recordings cut off, and that's why I keep saying yes, yes. Can you hear me? Because I actually don't know. And then I have to rethink, restart. Many people think that this is a joke. It's
Yeah,
not
but
a joke.
also it doesn't
In fact,
help if because if I would confirm it every time, I would just be interrupting you all the time. So that's why I'm not answering every time and just let you keep
yeah.
going.
But
But
if you
yes.
don't, I want to know that you're there because believe it or not, yes, Facebook, we're just recording on Facebook. It's because, I'm old school. Yes, I'm not used to these new apps or whatever people it's just a telephone call. So anyway, so people are running south. The French have invaded the north. That when Napoleon or the French army arrived in Moscow, yes, what we find is that Moscow was empty. Yes, or basically, Western Russia, yeah, Western Russia was empty when Napoleon arrived. The people ran, they fled, they were scared of the skulls and bones. Yes, people were just
I
scared.
can believe that.
Yeah, yeah, of course, well-known history. Yeah, so Moscow was deserted. What do you call it? Not just there, all the villages, everything else surrounding there for hundreds of kilometers. People had just gone because the thing is, these from what we can see, all these buildings throughout Poland, everywhere else, with suspicious history that they call churches. Yes, they've all got like these skulls and bones inside. Yes, so I've explained this in my book, Skulls and Bones. Yes, and I've explained it because it's very important. So everybody fled. They thought, oh no, we're not sticking around. Yeah, these people, they're like psycho killers. Yes, they're out to destroy this old world system whereby Christianity, Judaism, and Islam was actually one religion. This modern Christianity did not exist. The modern Islam did not exist. The modern Judaism did not exist 3 centuries ago.
What about the modern Buddhism and the modern Hinduism?
They didn't exist. They did not exist. It's like Fomenko shows in his books. The things. It's a very deeper subject. Like for example, Fomenko shows in his books, like when the tribes of Israel migrated west from Eastern Europe, and when they migrated into India and other places into northern India, the so-called fake Aryan invasion stories and the fake Mughal Empire. Yeah, the Mughal Empire was nothing else than the empire that had its capital in Moscow. Yes, and Moscow was the city of the mosque. Yes, as Fomenko points out. Yes, this is what he pointed out. But anyway, so now the people are fleeing to in many different directions. This is not a joke. People are fleeing for their lives. Yeah, who would want to stick around? Yes, if these people are, Paris. We've got like the entire city. They've just wiped it out. Yes, and we don't even know the history of Paris. Yes, all we know is that they're telling us that they've got all these skulls and bones, millions of them. Yes, underground. We don't even know how many. It's like no wonder they're going to be terrified in Eastern Europe because by that time, these people who'd set up camp with their military base in Polistein, or the so-called fake Duchy of Warsaw that Napoleon set up, and they invaded from
Hmm.
there. You see, so that's why I've shown in my books that modern Judaism didn't exist. It was invented by these people. Modern Christianity did not exist. It was invented by these people in power. Like for example, let's go through a small example. Yes, you've heard of the Book of Revelation. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Instead of going directly there, um, just name to me. Um, Everyone's heard of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the Book of Acts. Galatians and Ephesians and all these other books in the New Testament, and Revelation. Now, most people in Europe and America, a large percentage anyway, are atheists. They don't actually believe. Yes. So in any of this stuff. Yes, so the thing is, I'd like you to tell me which book is the most popular or quoted even by atheists or people from other religions, the book that is quoted the most from all of them,
Well, yeah, most
from the
likely,
New
I'm not
Testament.
sure it's either called Revelations or Apocalypse or something, but I think that's the same,
Yes,
no? Yeah.
that's the
Hmm.
one. Yes, that is the one. So now the strange thing is, if anybody looks at the history of Revelation or the Apocalypse, yes, Fomenko even shows that it came around the 16th century. He even shows artwork that's found from probably 17th, 18th century, and they've given it backdated. Yes, what do you call it? Here is an engraving by somebody called Dürer. Yes, and what we can find is that here is they show that an angel of God has come, and the angel of God came, and they give it to Saint John of the Apocalypse, and they say that this is the same man, yes, who wrote the Gospel of John. Yes, and they tried to say that he lived in Ephesus. Fomenko shows ancient Greece is a scam. Yes, I've gone even further than Fomenko because I have shown specific sites in my book, Ancient Greece, to show how they invented all these sites. And this so-called Ephesus, we can't seem to find it, where this Saint John apparently lived, 2,000 years ago. Yes. So the Gospel of John. Wait, let me just get this up. And what we will find is that the Gospel of John, the Gospel of John. um, by the same person they're claiming speaks about the birth of Jesus Christ. Well, this is the exact data, what we will find here. This is the one. Yes, you could read this yourself. Now, what do we find about the virgin birth story of Christ?
John and the virgin birth of Jesus.
No, the next one.
Why do we find the virgin birth only recorded in Matthew? The virgin,
And Luke.
Matthew, Luke, the virgin birth of Christ is clearly recorded in two of the four Gospels, Matthew and Luke. The other two Gospels, Mark and John, say nothing about it.
Yes. So now, if John of the Apocalypse or Revelation, yes, wrote this Revelation thing, it's very suspicious that he doesn't mention this story at all. And we were once talking about the virgin birth. Like,
I mean,
if
just
today,
realistically, aren't all these individuals that supposedly have their own evangelical text composite
I will go
characters
through that in
anyways?
a minute.
hmm
I
hmm
will go through that in a minute. None of these people existed. It's just fake, bogus names that they invented: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's like I could write four gospels, and then I'm thinking, oh, we're brainwashing the world. I'm I'm the new pope of the world, and we'll just call them Christopher, and what do you call it, Richard, and Raphael. Yeah, that's a good name, and Gabriel. Yeah, just invented names. But it's suspicious that John, who's supposed to be, talking about Christ, mysteriously doesn't mention the virgin birth. Now, it's like I pointed out before. Yeah, this is very important. Yes, because this is to do with Revelation. I couldn't finish it before. Even Fomenko came to a similar conclusion about the book of Revelation in his books. So I'll go through it in a minute, and you're going to think, "Oh my God, this is a very big so-called revelation." Yes, the so-called revelation of John. So the virgin birth is missing. This is suspicious. Yes, and the thing is, which side? Who would you say has focuses more on the virgin birth culturally? Even though people don't believe in Christianity anymore, would you say culturally the virgin birth and Christmas to celebrate this virgin birth and the birth of Christ? Is this more in Europe or is this in the Middle East where you will find Christmas trees?
In Europe.
Of course. So the thing is, if today, if somebody was walking around, let's say Germany or France or England, and they walked around and they said, what do you call it? Hey, I've just had a baby and it's a virgin birth. Would anyone believe it?
No.
No. So now this is a very serious thing. This raises the question of where did Jesus Christ live and where did the virgin birth happen? Did it really happen in the Middle East when there seems to be no cultural or even an oral tradition
hmm
about the virgin
hmm
birth? Yes, but the virgin birth, even now that people have given up Christianity, the oral tradition is here. The Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ was born. Yeah, we all know that. Yes, even people who don't believe, it's like it's something that many people know. It's culturally and orally, it's been passed down in where? In Europe. Yes, Western nations, they came from Europe. Canada, US, they came from Europe.
Yes.
So it's culturally in Europe. So the thing is, if we examine virgin birth, Renaissance paintings, um, um, many people will say um, the story of the virgin birth, yes, was very, very strange when we look at this. What do you call it? Yes, in Renaissance paintings in Europe, or even other images before the Renaissance. And what do many people say? The average person, in Europe, many people travel to Italy, travel to Spain, and other churches. What do people generally say? You can read it yourself. In medieval art,
Medieval paintings of Jesus. In medieval art, baby Jesus had the body of a baby, but the face of a fully grown man. Today, this can be very
yes, that's
shocking.
yes. This is a very important thing. It's because the Quran the Quran um, says something strange. Yes, the Quran says that